Hello again, Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16 here to talk Texas A&M football, my internet willing. When we do that, we always get our good friend Olin Bucahan of TexAgs.com. Got to see him last week at SEC Media Days. Olin, thanks for joining us today.
Well, it's my pleasure. Anytime Chris Lee needs me, I'm there.
I appreciate that. Well, Aggies need a big performance against LSU this Saturday. Just give us your initial thoughts on that matchup and maybe state of things for A&M. I think that Mississippi State game was always one they were going to win. I know it wasn't an A-plus performance, but I think in this league at this point, you get a win, especially on the road. You got to be happy. So set the stage for us coming into this week following what we saw last week.
First of all, if you know anything about Texas A&M's history, you know that every time they go to Starkville, bizarre things happen, and they usually come out with losses. They've gone there 4 times as a ranked team and the higher ranked team and lost to Mississippi State. So went in just thinking, hey, just get a win. That said, they didn't play particularly well. There's an old saying, I know you've heard it, that a mark of a good team is you win even when you're not playing that well. So I guess they qualified because they sure didn't play well and still was able to get a 10-point win. But they're going to have to play much better against LSU. I think this is again typically a evenly matched game, and I think this is going to be the case again. I wouldn't be surprised if this game didn't come down to the final series. Last year in Baton Rouge, A&M was within a touchdown like midway or late in the second half. We're talking about an A&M team that was, had fired their coach, that weren't playing well, and LSU had the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback and 2 first-round draft choices at receiver and all the things going their way. And it was still a game. A&M led at half, and again, it wasn't until I think Jaden Daniels broke loose on like a 50-yard run on a 4th down, and otherwise it could have gone either way. So I bring all that up just to say that I would expect it to be a close game again. I mean, just look at the LSU offensive line matchup against the A&M defensive line matchup. A&M's pass rush is its strength. LSU's given up 2 sacks all year. So it's going to be good on good. And there's a lot of other matchups that are similar in how, how well both teams are playing at those particular positions. So I expect it to be just a great game, and the winner's going to have an inside track at the SEC championship game. Still work to do, but definitely an inside track, and even the college football playoff. So it's the biggest, most important game in the history of the series. And I know A&M just joined the SEC in 2012, but back in the day they used to play every year. So I mean, I'm going back, ever. They never been this much at stake in this game.
When you look at Texas A&M, I mean, lost the first game to Notre Dame, hasn't lost since. What would you say are a couple of things maybe that have led to this streak that A&M has gotten on, and them kind of being able to turn the page from that opener? And they haven't all been big wins, but they've been wins for Texas A&M. What are some things that has led to that?
Yeah, I would think first and foremost, they've got their offensive line has improved dramatically since last year. I mean, we're talking about, if I was given a grade, going from a D to maybe a B plus, borderline A. I mean, that's how well the the offensive line is playing, and because of that, Le'Veon Moss is having a big year. He would have had his third straight career high rushing performance last week, if not for 2 penalties that nullified a 30-yard gain and a 38-yard gain. So I think that just the running game, the improved running game, and it starts with the offensive line making improvement. We expected the defense to be really good. The running game has been, I think the strength of the team, definitely offensively. They were backed up on the 1-yard line against Arkansas was able to take it down and score. They were backed up on the 1 yard line against Florida, was able to take it down and score. So they've just been they pass enough, but if you, when they're successful, they run the football well.
Just a reminder, our content brought to you by BetOnline. Basketball fans, it's that time of the year. NBA is back from opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, plus the Aggies here. They're going to be pretty good. Wade Taylor back again for A&M this year. BetOnline's got you covered with the odds on the Aggies and everybody else. Biggest promotions, live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during games. It's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, and even political props. Head to the website today to get in on all the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline. The game starts here. Olin, Connor Weigman threw a touchdown, a couple of picks last week. I think it's been a shoulder injury with him earlier in the year. Correct me if I'm wrong. What's the confidence level in him, health-wise, performance-wise, everything heading into LSU?
Well, health-wise, 100%. He's healthy. Okay. I was saying his performance against Notre Dame was a 0. His performance against Missouri was 100, and he was probably somewhere around 50 against Mississippi State, and he has to be better than that. He had 2 interceptions. On one of them, he probably should have just tucked it and run and taken the first down, but it got popped open. It looked like the ball might have slipped out of his hand, or just sailed on him. It was a terrible pass to an open guy. And the second one, he was just late delivering it. And, he's going to hit Noah Thomas for a 5-yard gain at his own, they're backed up, and he just waited. And why? He hadn't been made available to answer that question. But so he was late in delivering it. And I mean, quite a bit late, like, 2 seconds. You're like, what are you waiting on? And I don't know if he thought he was looking for something else. But anyway, and the Mississippi State intercepted at the 11-yard line, and it turned out to be an easy touchdown for him. He had some outstanding moments too. So he was very erratic last week, and against LSU, you're hoping more. It's trending more toward what he was like against Missouri, because he was excellent in that game. So we've seen him be excellent this year. We've seen him be excellent in previous years. We've seen him be really good against LSU when he was a freshman, when they upset LSU 38-23. He was exceptional in that game, two touchdowns. But because he's been erratic against Notre Dame, and then last week, I think you go in knowing that he can do some good things and a lot of good things, but there's a certain amount of, if you're honest, there's a certain amount of apprehension, because you've seen him do some bad things. Coming into this year, he had thrown 2 interceptions his whole career, and now he already has 4. He has 4 interceptions, 3 touchdown passes. So they need to get the best of him. And again, you've seen it, and I do think that there are plays to be made against the LSU secondary. So I will say this: he's typically very accurate on downfield throws. The when he has a chance to set himself, the throw against the second interception, it was a short throw, and it would seem like that would be easier, to complete. But for whatever reason, he does seem to be more accurate on the mid range to deep balls.
Defensively for Texas A&M, look, you're going up against LSU. Garrett Nussmeier's having a tremendous year so far. Their offense is, obviously they're missing the Heisman Trophy winner, but I feel like their offense is doing great this year. How do you see the matchup with A&M, and what are they going to do to stop Nussmeier in the offense?
Well, I think first of all, you're going to try to get some pressure, and that may be difficult against that offensive line. We talked about they only had 2 sacks all year. Now, I watched the earlier today. I was watching their game against Ole Miss, because I thought, hey, that's one you look at because it's their most impressive win. And I thought Nussmeier was under pressure quite a bit. Now, he handled it well. One of his interception came off because of pressure. But he had guys from Ole Miss around him constantly. They just didn't get home. They got close. So maybe, maybe A&M will be able to get home. I'll say this. Mike Elko is really adept at dialing up an effective blitz at the right time.
Yeah.
And I know that A&M typically just likes to rush with four. Why not? You can with Nick Scourton and Shemar Turner, Shemar Stewart. You can typically do that. But I wouldn't be surprised if they blitz from different directions more often. And the thing that should concern you if you're looking at it from the A&M standpoint is, look, the Aggies are really good on defense. They are, but they have this tendency, for whatever reason, to let down a couple times of a game and give up, huge chunk plays. I was looking at it like last week, for example. Mississippi State finished for something like 380 yards. Throwing that out. All but like 90 of them came on 17 plays. And they ran 77 plays. 60 plays of that game, Mississippi State had 85 yards. But on 17 plays, they were putting up big yards. So, and I'm talking about games between 10 to 40 yards, and that's what A&M has got to overcome. Look, I get it. You're going to give up some 10, 15-yard passes. You are. But Arkansas, 75-yard touchdown pass on the third play of the game. I think Florida had a long touchdown pass. Bowling Green, 65-yard touchdown pass on the first play of the second half. So Mississippi State had a couple long plays. So that's the thing that you go into the game with apprehension from an A&M defensive standpoint, because they can beat you on 10 straight plays and then give up a touchdown. And I'm talking about a 70-yard touchdown on the 11th play. And if they improve in that area, then I think they're going to have an excellent chance to win the game.
Yeah, and in spite that, I'm looking at the numbers. They've not given up more than 5.6 yards a play in any game so far. Notre Dame, Florida, and Bowling Green have all hit that number on the nose. And the Florida performance starting to look really better, given what we've seen of Florida lately. So yeah, I mean it's interesting that tells me that the rest of the time they're just shutting it down and not allowing a lot of first down runs and short passes to be strung together to get first downs.
Yeah, Missouri scored on like a 60-yard throw when the quarterback Cook, he was flushed out of the pocket, and so he made this throw on the run. It's there's no question how good they are, but for whatever reason, it's a consistent thing. I mean, everybody gives up some big plays, but you almost to the point of going in for A&M and going in and say, okay, now your opponent's going to hit a 70-yard pass play, 60, 70. You're going to have this one and probably one that's going to be around 50. Now, what can you do for the rest of the day? I mean, it's almost to that degree.
Yeah, and when you look at this Texas A&M LSU matchup, like if you had to say this is how the game is going to go, this is how the game is going to flow Saturday night for Texas A&M to get a win, what would you look like the game would have to go?
Yeah, you're going to have to run the football, and quite frankly, I think they'll be able to. But they're going to have to run. I know the LSU's run defense apparently has gotten better since Harold Perkins gotten hurt, and Whit Weeks is doing a really good job in there. But you're going to have to run the football, and Le'Veon Moss is a Louisiana kid, so I'm sure he's going to be even more motivated. Not that you should have to be, but and if they're able to run and then make some passes off of play action, like I said, I think from what I've seen, there are plays to be made against the secondary. And then on the flip side, so I think you're going to be able to have an opportunity to score. And then on the flip side is, look, that's an explosive LSU offense. We know that. But just don't give up the huge chunk plays. And if they're going to score, when they score on you, at least make them work for it.
Yeah.
And avoid turnovers at all costs. Because Yeah, everybody says that, but with A&M, they almost lost, or they did lose to Notre Dame, and turnovers were a big factor in
Yep.
it. And then the whole issue last week.
Yeah, they've been upside down in turnovers twice. One of them was last week. The other one was a Notre Dame game. Other than that, they turned the ball over once, I think, if I've got this correct,
Right, and that was
in 5 games in between.
that was
That was Bowling Green.
at the end of the Bowling Green game, and Moss was at the end of a 15-yard run where he got hit from behind. They punched it out, and um, fortunately, it didn't turn out to be a factor in the outcome.
Yeah, that's hard to do. I mean, I'm looking. Their offense has been. It's not spectacular, but it's man,
Sufficient.
it's steady. Well, yeah. I mean, they're giving up turnovers just over like 1.1% of snaps. That's pretty elite. They're getting 5.7 yards per rushing play if you take sacks out of it. That's pretty elite. And by the way, they run at 61% of the time. And they only get sacked at a 4% rate, which also helps you with turnovers. So I think that the formula for what they can do to win, I think we've kind of outlined. What are your concerns? Like if A&M loses this game, what will the game probably have looked like?
Well, I would assume then that LSU probably hit at least 3 big plays, and I'm talking about
Yeah.
50-yard plus touchdown throws. I don't think LSU will consistently run on them, even though they've gotten better with Durham in there. But I'm saying here, I don't think you're going to consistently run on them. And then I think you're going to look at Connor, probably struggled and may have had a couple of interceptions again if they lose. But maybe he throws for less than 200 yards with a couple of picks. That if that happens to go along with the tendency to give up big plays, I think those would be the two prevailing factors in LSU winning.
Olin, last question on the way out. Give me a prediction and why.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take A&M. I'll tell you, and it's because they're at Kyle Field.
Yeah.
I think A&M might have won the last 3 here against LSU. But I think it's going to be that close, and I'll give them the edge because they're at home, and I do think they're going to be able to run the football, and if A&M runs successfully, they become a hard team to beat.
Olin, you guys are as good as it gets when it comes to covering the Aggies. The resources you guys put into things at TexAgs are just nothing short of amazing. Tell people about what you guys have got planned for this weekend and where they can find it all.
Okay, well, obviously a lot of pregame hype on
Yeah.
A&M in Texas. We're going to have a lot of articles. Of course, I'm going to be doing that. We'll have podcasts, our radio programs. Everything's going to be geared toward this game. Probably more LSU A&M stuff than you thought possible. By the game time, you're probably going to feel like you've already seen the game played. But we feel like we are the premier outlet for all things Texas A&M sports. So if
Yeah.
you're interested in this game, and particularly in the Aggies in general, give us a look. It's TexAgs.com. That's an abbreviated version of Texas Aggies, just TexAgs.com.
Yeah, I don't know if more than you thought was possible is a tagline for your media enterprise, but if it's not, you might consider it because I think that is very accurate.
Like that, yeah. Well, it's a big
Yeah.
game. It's a big game, and it's A&M's. A&M has two hated rivals. And it's like the Wizard of Oz. You had the Wicked Witch of the East, but she wasn't even as bad as the Wicked Witch of the West. And we know which is which. We know which one is East, and we know which one is West. Hopefully, you can take care of the East this week and get rid of the wicked one from the West in a next month.
Well, we got in the Halloween spirit here a week
That's right.
early, and I appreciate that. We're always in the spirit to cover football, baseball, basketball. We
Absolutely.
do that year round. We're your one-stop shop for that, hopefully for SEC stuff, just as TexAgs is for your A&M coverage. But in any case, do that all the time. If you want to advertise, we reach millions a year. You can reach caroline.smith@southeastern14.com for that. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. Thanks to Olin Buchanan for joining us. You've been watching and listening to Southeastern 16 presented by BetOnline.